Sound check one, sound check one.
Good morning. Are we sure this is you? No, it's me, actually. Yeah. Good morning. As we have quorum present for today's meeting, I would like to call this meeting of the Waste Management Subcommittee to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by member Lori Nielsen and seconded by member Kevin Hunt. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. All in favor? And that carries. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. May I please get a mover and seconder to adopt the previous meeting minutes? Is there any discussion on these minutes? That is, I'm not seeing any discussion on this, but that is moved by member Nielsen and seconded by member Hunt. All in favor? And that carries. We're going to hear all of the items for information, items 7.1 to 7.9, and then receive them all together at the end. So we'll start with 7.1, Blue Box Transition. I would like to call upon Ryan Kent, Manager of Waste Policy and Planning, to begin the presentation.
Morning, just waiting for the slides to catch up here. Okay, good morning to committee members. Yeah, we're going to begin today by start talking about the Blue Box transition update. We do have a few pieces to update this group on. The first is on September 4th, the provincial government approved some regulation amendments that I'm going to walk you through right now. These Blue Box changes, the first change is deferring recovery targets, the increases for paper, glass, metal, rigid plastics until 2032. So in the original Blue Box regulation, there were targets set for the period of 2026 to 2029 and then 2030 and past. So for paper, these targets were 80% going to 85%. Glass, it was 75 to 85%. Metal went from 67 to 75%, and rigid plastic from 50 to 60%. In the regulation amendments, these targets are no longer being are being deferred rather to 2032. So that's a big change, obviously. These were meaningful targets that were in the original Blue Box regulation, requiring producers to really put forward some greater effort in capturing these materials. Those targets have now been deferred. There's also some targets for flexible plastics. These are now being phased in. So 10% for the next couple of years, moving to 15% and then 25% after 2032. That's significantly less than originally it was 25% up until 2029 and then 40%. So again, these targets are decreased dramatically. And one of the results of these changes could be the fact that these materials ended up more in the waste, the garbage, which is obviously a concern for us. The regulation says now that producers should put forward best efforts in trying to recover these materials, which obviously does not meet the meaning of the regulation as it was originally written. Additionally, these amendments include removing the requirement to expand collection in public spaces, so parks, for example, and removing the requirement to collect beverage containers, what they call away from home, and deferring those targets to 2032. In addition, the regulation amendments do allow for up to 15% of producers' management obligation to be met through energy recovery from residuals of the recovery process. And then the last big change, which will definitely impact us in Hamilton, will be deferring Blue Box collection to any new multi-residential buildings that come onto service in 2026 or later, and deferring that collection until 2031. So that is starting January 1st, no new multi-residential buildings will be eligible for blue box collection from producers, which is a change that was not originally thought of in the regulation. Moving forward to our next topic, which is recycling at depots. So currently, the City of Hamilton does have an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario to accept recycling at our 3 community recycling centers until the end of this year. That's during the transition period. And a lot of municipalities have these agreements in place. These agreements all expire on December 31st as we move into full transition starting on January 1st. Circular Materials has provided the City of Hamilton and all municipalities with a new agreement. We received these new draft agreements in August, and we will be providing a report to the Public Works Committee scheduled for November 10th. We will be providing a report with details about continuing this service, details about the agreement from Circular Materials Ontario, and so we will go into more detail at that point. The next piece is about bulky rigid plastics. So to refresh everyone's memory, when we transitioned the Blue Box program April 1st, we took bulky rigid plastics away from our community recycling centers. And we did that because it was harder to find markets. It was not something that was eligible under the new Blue Box program. Staff are now currently negotiating to bring those materials back to have an option so that residents have an option to bring their bulky rigid plastics, and B, as you might be aware of, we provide residents with carts, and this provides us with an option to recycle that material when they are damaged. So we are looking into that. It is the hope of staff that as of January 1st, 2026, we can bring that service back to the community recycling centers, but we will obviously keep this group apprised of that, as well as letting residents know in our new waste collection guide that will be going out next year, as well as through social media and other channels, letting them know of that change coming back to, and I'm sure residents will be happy to have that service come back if we're able to do that. Just another piece on this is that there is the ability under the current contract that we have for operating those facilities to add and delete items. So this should be a pretty contractually, it should be relatively easy. It does not require a report to council to bring that material back. And the next item here is blue box distribution. We know that this has been an issue here in the City of Hamilton. Obviously, prior to transition, our municipal service centers, our community recycling centers were all locations where residents could receive blue boxes. That was taken away, obviously, on April 1st. Blue box transition required producers to only provide one, or the contractor to only provide one location to receive blue boxes, and that is in Stony Creek right now. So staff are in some discussion right now with Green for Life to determine if there are any options that we could potentially provide to residents. So we are working on that, and we will obviously make residents know of any changes that may happen to that to make it a little bit more accessible to them. So our next steps on the blue box transition update, the first is staff is currently drafting a communication update on the blue box regulation amendments so that all council is aware of the impact and what's happening with that. As I said previously, November 10th, the report to Public Works Committee on blue box services at community recycling centers. And then on November 27th, Waste Management Subcommittee will be coming back to this group to let this group know the options of how we will deal with multi-residential buildings that, as I said, because of the amendments, will not be getting service. So we'll figure out what we think is the best option at that time, and then come back to this group so that everyone is informed of how we will deal with that situation that's been handed to us by the province. And I will stop sharing now to take any questions on this particular item.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Wilson, please.
So could you just, on the multi-residential piece, at site plan and planning approvals right now, have we required or worked with folks? I'm just trying to remember the different regimes, sixplex plus, et cetera. And so I'm assuming this is a dramatic change for some folks that are both in planning permit, like they've been approved, but it's not yet constructed yet. So they have a system that now doesn't have an operator, but that's what the blueprint is, and that's what's going to get built. And then where does the waste go at the end? Could you just maybe talk a little bit more about the implications and like where this might catch different applications at, whether they're already built, and now what does this mean in terms of their waste next month, next week, or are they already working with a private operator, but now it's just waste only, just versus a building in construction? What's some of the actual impacts to the building owners?
Sure. So through the chair, just to first better define what we're speaking about, so multi-res is 6 units plus. We are talking about buildings that are not receiving any municipal service. So they could be built right now, they could have 20% occupancy right now, but they haven't come to us to get that service. So that kind of answers that question. So as soon as they come to us, it's when they actually start municipal service. And if it's January 1st or later, then they would be non-eligible based on the amendments to the regulation. We, for the past number of years, all of the comments that waste management staff provide to new developments, it has had a standard comment that speaks to the blue box regulation that as of a certain time period, the municipality would not be responsible for blue box collection. It would be the provinces. We just started amending that to say that that service may not be available until a certain date as per the blue box regulation. The problem is we want to make the language rather flexible in case they change the rules again, but also make it clear that it's not the city's responsibility currently at this time, and their servicing is contingent upon any other changes that the province makes. So we are trying to communicate that to developers so that they understand that they may not be getting service. The problem is right now we don't know if we'll be providing that service or not. That depends on when we come back on November 27th, what that plan is. There really is, I mean, essentially it's this city either takes on that service or we could ask them to get private service for recycling, let us know that they're doing it so it doesn't go into the garbage. We're really looking at those two options and then trying to figure out if there's a third or a fourth that might go into that. But right now, those are two options that are on the table right now.
And then through you, Chair, just to follow up, are there private recycling providers that are doing residential, or is that part of maybe the option scan is looking to see if there's a provider, but do we know of anyone that actually fills that niche right now outside of Circular Materials Ontario? Like, is there existing apartment buildings that have this ethic and want to do this already? And so it's just a matter of, you know, it's a private provider and that's the transition solution. It's about encouraging folks to make that choice or using the levers we have, carrots, sticks, et cetera. Or is there like potentially a gap in that service?
So through the chair, there are. I speak quite a bit with other municipalities. There are certainly other municipalities that have spoken to, say, condo boards that have looked at this. I would say that the service might be rather expensive, but there are service providers out there. So it's just us getting a little bit of a better sense of what that market looks like. But to answer your question, there are service providers.
Just last question from me on this. So there's folks who have currently built buildings to specs to accept recycling. Does this change anything for future approval? So obviously 2031 is a long time away. If you're an operator and you're doing annual budgets and you're looking for a return on your rental building, 5 years is more than you're doing your fiscal horizon maybe in terms of operating costs. But in terms of the life of that building, people are going to live in it far longer after 2031 than before, especially if it's getting constructed now. And so those decisions made in design are inherited for the life of that building, even if service isn't there till later in that building's life. Right. Is there a potential risk that folks are choosing different options then because the service doesn't exist for that upon kind of construction time, or is that something that's going to come back in the future? I'm just not necessarily understanding the control regime we have, whether it's something that we mandate versus encourage versus suggest. And when we're looking at a multi-residential, how important is, like, how much weight does this comment get versus other comments? So if you could maybe just comment on how big of a change this is really what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so through the chair, on our process currently, I don't think there's much change. So we have gone back to producers, circular materials, and said, what changes do you want in our design, waste design requirements to meet whatever you want from the infrastructure of a building to make sure it's built? And we've basically received zero response. So we've not changed our waste design requirements. We require a certain amount of space for recycling, separate chutes for recycling, loading space, all these types of things. We have not changed any of that as of yet. We have not received any direction from circular materials on how to change it, how they want to change it. Do they want 2 stream, single stream, front end bin, carts? We haven't received any input from them. So we haven't changed that. When we do receive information from them, and municipalities have asked numerous times for this type of information, we will change the waste design requirements to however they want it to be met. So hopefully that answers the question from a process perspective. We're still providing the comments. We're still saying that there should be a certain amount of space, because if it isn't built to allow for that space, they won't have it. And that will most likely mean that it will cause significant issues for building operators, property managers, superintendents in the future. So yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Member Hunt, please.
Okay, through the chair, I got a little selection of questions. So with schools, was circular materials supposed to accept their blue box waste prior, and that's been basically put on hold? Is that true?
Through the chair, yeah. In addition to multi-residential buildings, it's selected long-term care homes as well.
Yeah.
If they meet certain criteria, not private ones, as well as schools.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Another question on the circular materials. So we had our blue box program. We knew our recycling rates for all the different materials. Do we get any feedback from circular materials on what the current rates are, and are they higher or lower?
So through the chair, a report that's generated for the public consumption that includes the recycling rates. So what we would know is whether or not they're meeting targets or not. And that would all be handled through RPRA, so the Resource Productivity and Recovery Association, or authority rather. They're the authority that oversees the blue box regulation. We haven't seen any of this information so far. They should be reporting that back to that starting in January in 2026, because all municipalities would be transitioned at that point. It would be easier to assess how the program is running. So we will get that information from a very high level. We won't know it municipality to municipality. So we won't know how's Hamilton doing versus how's Toronto doing versus for recycling. That information will not be shared.
Okay, so we're basically losing some information we had, I would assume.
Through the chair, correct. Yeah, we will, for example, we will not be able to provide, when staff determine what our diversion rate is,
Yeah.
blue box recycling will not be a part of that except for, our non-eligible sources, our businesses, some small sources that we are providing that service for starting in January. But no, as a whole, our residential stream, no, we will not know.
Yep. And the final question is on circular materials. If they have if the blue box material comes in and they have a waste stream, does it end up in our landfill, or did they send it to a private facility?
Through the chair, no, the circular materials does not have the ability to dispose of their residue material contamination that's in the blue box in the Glanbrook landfill. They will have to figure out where they want to send that.
Okay, so it's not affecting our landfill.
Not from that perspective. It would, in the perspective of if they're not recovering blue box material at the rate that they're supposed to, that material would end up in our landfill. But the residue or contamination would not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Member Hunt. Councillor Taddison was up first.
Okay. You mentioned that we're going to stop collecting bulky plastics because there's no market. So now we are restarting that, apparently. So I'm assuming market conditions have changed. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so through the chair, I would say that when we've looked at it, there are more opportunities for us to have that material recycled than we thought previously. We thought that maybe with the blue box transition, it wouldn't be a priority to recycle that material, but that hasn't been the case. But I couldn't comment specifically on market values of this plastic material or anything to that nature.
Okay, so we don't know if this, we just think that there's a market for it, but we don't know the price that we're going to get on it. Oh,
Yes, so through the chair, I would probably say that best case, what we're probably looking at is a zero cost. But we'll look at that. The other issue that we had previously was also, we didn't have the MRF. So the MRF was, I should have mentioned that in my previous comment, that the MRF allowed us to take material over to the MRF, sort it from the different community recycling centers. So it was easier to kind of put together and send it off for processing. We didn't have that option previously, and so that was also an issue. So we're working with that through that issue now.
and when you say MRF, can you just define that?
Yeah, material recycling
Thank you.
facilities, sorry, yes.
Through the chair, I just want to just be clear that we're looking at the details of it and the costs associated with it as well. Like it could be, depending on locations and tipping fees, it could be relatively expensive, something that we didn't necessarily experience in the past just because of how local it was and because we did have our own MRF. So the costing will depend on what distance is traveled as well and where the MRFs are located and tipping fees.
One more question. Just following up with what Member Hunt was saying, do we think there's going to be an effect on our landfill site in Glenbrook? And you said it could possibly. So are we assuming that it's going to be, there's going to be a net, I guess a pause, and it would be a negative effect if we're adding more because we're recycling less now with the provincial. Is that correct?
Sorry, through the chair, your question on whether or not, if producers are not meeting their targets, that we would have more recycling in our garbage stream?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very early on in the process, but through waste composition studies, we'll be able to figure out whether or not they're recovering the materials that they need to recover and whether or not that capture rate is increasing or not. So we can audit the garbage stream. We cannot audit, obviously, the blue box stream.
Has the province made more blue box recycling that we were previously collecting? Have they decreased the amount of things that can go in a blue box?
Through the chair, no. So during the transition period, essentially everything that was accepted in the blue box material in whatever municipality was still accepted. Very, very recently, just last week, we did see the new material list that will start in January 1st, 2026, and the list of acceptable materials has expanded. It is more than what it was previously.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Councillor Taddison. Up next is Member Nielsen.
I think I heard something about the small businesses. What is the current situation with them? Like the ones that had collection, blue box collection curbside?
Yeah. So through the chair, council passed a report, staff recommendation to continue with the collection of recycling curbside at non-eligible sources, so what the producers consider non-eligible, mainly small businesses from January 1st, 2026 until when the new waste collection contract comes out, which will probably be in April 2029. And then we're hoping to, in the RFP, to ask for a price in that. So they're getting service. The only difference in service that they may receive is a different collection day. So to get better pricing from the service provider, they said that they could provide better servicing if they could come up with a new collection schedule. And so we're working through details of what that is now, and that will be communicated to businesses. But as far as whether or not they're receiving collection, the collection will be maintained at least for the next few years.
Okay, good.
All right, seeing no further speakers to this, we move on to 7.2, Multi-Residential Waste Program. I'd like to call upon Ryan Kent, Manager of Waste Policy and Planning, to begin the presentation.
Thank you again. Just pulling up the presentation now. Thank you. So moving along to item 7.2. So we want to give you an update on a few different pieces for our multi-residential waste program. The first is we did just complete a waste composition study, so a waste audit in May and June of this past year on 30 multi-residential buildings with just under total of 1,900 units. We really focused on the garbage and organic streams because, of course, we are not able to audit the blue box stream any longer. All the buildings were located in Zone A1, wards 2 and 3, due to the concentration of the multi-residential buildings in those areas. The garbage was collected once, and then the consultant went back up to 3 times to see if the green bin was left out so that it could be audited. The total weight of each stream was recorded, and then it was subsampled. So for scoping our audit, they don't audit all the material. We give them a maximum amount, and then they audit that. So here are the details of the garbage stream from the waste composition study. So there was just under 6,600 kilograms of garbage collected in the study. Just under 4,200 kilograms, or 63% of that, was actually audited. So it was actually, the waste composition was calculated. That left us with a per unit garbage generation of 6.1 kilograms per week. There was what we call a diversion potential. So if all material was captured where it was supposed to be captured, 64% diversion potential, because 2,500 kilograms of the garbage stream was either recycling, organics, or leaf and yard waste. We've also noted that 176 kilograms of textiles and household hazardous waste was found in the garbage stream. So those materials, although there isn't a curbside service at each unit, there are opportunities for someone to take that material so it could be recycled. And then the remaining just over 1,500 kilograms was garbage, including the largest number of residual waste was almost 600 kilograms of pet waste. So that is the largest piece of our garbage stream. This chart, you can see the composition broke down a little bit more clearly. So in the garbage stream, 37% was organics, 22% was recycling, and then you had a little bit of other materials such as textiles. Moving along to the green bin or the organics, there is 220 kilograms of material collected. This represents an 11.6% capture rate of that material. 9% contamination rate, which is relatively good. Only 9 buildings, however, were participating in the green bin program, which is a 30% participation rate. 32% of the garbage stream in participating buildings was organics. So in those buildings that did have a green bin program, 32% of the garbage, which was a little bit less than the whole, was organics. And then 41% of the organics was avoidable food waste. And you can see the breakdown a little bit better on this chart on the screen as well. I would just mention that yard waste, the 5% there, the majority of that was from one building on one collection day. So that's kind of an anomaly, I would say. That we don't normally see. Just a little bit on Blue Box performance from the standpoint of the material that's in the garbage stream. So we've spoken about this several times already. So we did the last multi-residential waste composition study was in 2022. 19% of the garbage stream was recyclable at that point. It is now 22% on this in 2025. Slightly higher. I would say that this being in May and June, it might be a little bit early for us to determine how that really measures the performance of the program since producers took it over. I think we'll get a little bit more information on that on further studies, but at least it shows us, a range of how the system is actually performing currently. Just very briefly, so that people know what we're talking about, Blue Box, I have listed on this screen some of our different areas of, or categories of Blue Box material. Very high level. It does go into more specifics for the waste composition study, but I just want to give everyone an idea of that. Now I'm going to move into the second piece of the multi-residential waste program that I wanted to talk to everyone, and that's the education program. So up until this point, to give a little bit of context, our education program for multi-residential buildings was basically reactionary. So superintendent, property owner, whoever would call us up and say, hey, we would like some posters, whatever, and we would provide them with whatever information that they would want. This year, we've moved towards a more proactive approach. This proactive approach includes that we have started mailing out tenant guides to each individual unit, so everyone gets it directly in their unit. They don't have, their superintendent doesn't have to ask for it, and then they distribute it. So over 40,000 waste guides were delivered directly to units in over 1,200 buildings. This is a program that we hope to move forward, continue to move forward. Our single-family residents get a guide every year, and we're hoping to make it a little bit more equitable and have residents in multi-res programs buildings get these as well. Our staff at this point, it's very early in the program, but they have visited 38 buildings. The main thing that we want to move forward right now is having participation in the green bin program increase. As you can see from the previous slides on the waste composition study, that participation is very low. The capture rate is low. We want to get more buildings onto this program. So 38 buildings were visited. 3 buildings are in progress for starting the green bin program. 7 buildings have demonstrated some interest, so we're hoping that we can get them on, but 28 of them have flat out refused or said they're not interested and have no interest in joining the green bin program. This is the education material that our staff have provided when they do schedule a visit and they go proactively to visit a building. They do provide additional waste guides and also superintendent guides. So you can see on the screen there, the top is the waste sorting guide. The bottom is the guide for property owners and operators. The waste sorting guide does have on the back page of it several languages other than English that direct people on how to use the waste app so that they can look up materials if they're unsure. We provide them sorting posters for their common areas, labels for their carts. We do offer a waste presentation that staff can go speak to residents at the building so that they have a better understanding and can ask questions, and obviously contacts for collection or education questions. And the third piece of multi-res that I want to speak to this group about is our multi-residential waste bylaw enforcement piece. So our bylaw does include section 3.5 that does state the general manager may determine that owners who do not participate fully in the city's collection of recyclable materials, organic materials, or yard waste, or who sell or otherwise transfer recyclable materials, organic materials, or yard waste to persons other than the city are not eligible to receive or continue to receive services. So it basically says you need to participate in all of our diversion programs to receive garbage collection. That's essentially what the bylaw says. Currently, as we've seen first in the multi-res waste composition studies, second in the proactive education program that staff are now carrying out, that currently numerous multi-residential buildings receive garbage collection while refusing to participate in the green bin program. Beginning in 2026, staff would like to commence removing multi-residential buildings from municipal service if they continue to refuse to participate in the green bin program. So this is making sure that staff can actually enforce the bylaw so that we can get the best performance out of the waste management program that we can. So this would be included as part of our proactive education program. So maybe giving them 1 or 2 chances that we contact them, ask them to sign up, and if they do not, giving them, a minimum of, let's say, 3 months notice prior to the cancellation of the service. And staff really feel like we need to put a little bit more onus on buildings to participate in this program, and we are happy to provide them with services to help them. Education, for example, and making sure that if they want presentations or whatever they need to get the residents participating, support to the superintendents, that we are here to do that. And I will stop sharing because that is the end of the multi-res piece.
Thank you for the presentation. First up, we've got Member Nielsen. Go ahead, please.
So of the buildings that don't want to participate, is there maybe a fire and safety regulations that come into that and they don't want to have to build a special room?
Through the chair, fire regulation for managing organic waste separately than
Yeah.
garbage. As far as I know, there is not a regulation that differentiates between those two. So they would still be stored in the garbage room. Some in these cases, organics would be stored outside. But there shouldn't be an issue with separating the two, if that's your question.
My mom's building, but that's an Oakville. They've having to put a special room in for their organics and recycling. The garbage goes down the chute and into a collector that way, but yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Next up, we've got Councillor Alex Wilson, please.
Is it typically surprising that over a third of the actual garbage was pet waste? I know that wasn't the main point of the multi-res program, but is that typical in multi-res? I'm just a little astounded. Like, is that like, yeah, were you surprised, or is that actually very, very typical? And then if it is typical, have we had conversations about separate stream, or just, I'm a little amazed a third of the actual waste is pet waste. Is that like cat litter, or I'm just trying to understand?
So through the chair, that's consistent with the multi-residential audits that we did in 2021 and 2022. So I can't speak to other municipalities or jurisdictions. I can speak to what we've seen here in the past, and pet waste was, if not the largest stream in the recycling, like the garbage material in the garbage program. It was second. I believe last time it was pet waste and then diapers. So pet waste, to answer your question, I was not surprised to see it being the #1 item in the garbage stream.
Then through you, Chair, again, drifting a little bit from organics and how this is the compliance here, but is there a conversation in other jurisdictions about whether it's a 4th stream, a 5th stream, or whatever, but a diversion or a program specific for it, just if those are so substantive of what's there, and understanding that they don't necessarily have to go to landfill, especially if streamed out earlier. And then again, a comment on just, I'm assuming this isn't little dog bags that are making it back up and that's counting up. Like, is it more litter that gets heavier? It's just, if it's 600 like kilograms of that, is it bedding and litter and stuff like that that's now wet?
So through the chair, to better characterize it, I would say the majority of it is kitty litter. Yeah. So and to answer your other question about handling that material stream separately, I don't know of any municipalities that have managed kitty litter specifically as a separate stream. We do know that there are some, and we will have a presentation later that talks about dog waste in parks, for example. But that's a little bit different, and kitty litter is a different material stream altogether. But I have not seen from any municipalities anyone handling that material separately. It is a significant piece of the waste stream. But I also haven't heard from industry organizations or anywhere else that there is a solution to that. So doesn't mean we can't look, though.
And then just switching gears entirely, just a final comment from me, supportive of, encouraged compliance with organics, and appreciating that. Is it that future updates will come when there is an intention to switch over? Is that just it's in delegated authority? Is there a plan to communicate with, again, if this is ward councillor specific, because it is targeting in the downtown, to have a conversation with those 2 councillors so they know when building owners are calling them, just why those calls are coming proactively? Or could you comment a little bit on rollout, or if it's going to be another conversation first before rolled out?
Yeah, so through the chair, we're still working on the plan, but absolutely we would be adding, communication to councillors' offices so that they know what's happening. And we would absolutely provide that to that group. We can provide a little bit more information on the November 27th Waste Subcommittee with what that plan looks like. But yeah, this was really the first step of that conversation that probably should have been had a while ago. But now that we have resources to proactively do this, we want to start working on it now. So you're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. On to Councillor Tannison, please.
Councillor Wilson's last comments were what I was going to ask about, ward specific for the 28 buildings that are not in compliance. If we could get a update on ward by ward kind of breakdown of that information.
So through the chair, ward by ward, who's participating, who isn't, we can try and pull that data together. One of the issues we've had is that sometimes the buildings have a green bin on site, and for all intents and purposes, staff think that they're participating, but when you actually go there, they're not putting that cart out at the curb, and they've just kept it. So it's a little difficult to get accurate numbers on that without actually being there out on the curb. So the way that we are trying to deal with it is, like I said, when our staff actually contact them and say, we want you to, are you participating in the program? No, yes. We actually visit them on site. We know whether or not they're putting the material out. The way that we would probably approach that is maybe with set out studies and these types of things. But I don't think we can rely on all the data we have of who we think is participating, because some of the times they have a bin, and they just don't set it out. And that's a real issue with the data. But that doesn't mean that we can't provide as much information as we do have to the ward councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Tannison. Member Hunt, please.
Okay, and this might be more of an idea than just a question. So if they're not participating in the green cart, is there kind of like, are they worried about critters? Have you found that out? And the other thought is, could the city supply, I'm thinking like a 10-foot storage box where people could have a door, put the green cart in, but then have a roll-up door at the other end where, the city would actually come and recycle and know that that's the area. So that would get around the, the critter problem, but also the ability that where the cart is, you grab the cart, and it might be a different thought. For older buildings that might say, oh, we don't have facilities or something. Just a thought.
Yeah, so through the chair, a couple of pieces to that. First, you mentioned like the door and that the city could come and open up. Typically, waste collection staff wouldn't do that. Waste collection staff would be picking it up off of the curb, right? So wherever this structure might be, if it's in the back of the building, that would make the collection routes extremely inefficient if they had to walk around a building or go to a building and open it. Maybe it's unlocked, maybe it's not locked. And if it is locked, then we have to come back and get it because they didn't have it, or those types of issues. In the case of actually supplying a storage room, that hasn't been something that the city has done. I wouldn't know where to begin with determining what the cost to the city would be to do that. I think what we really want to understand, and to answer your question, yes, some of it is storage, some of it is thinking that it's going to cause, issues with pests, as you mentioned, or odor, or however. But lots of municipalities have implemented this. I think it really is a matter now of putting that onus on building operators. So right now they get waste garbage collection, they get the green bin collection, they get services. I believe it's more expensive for them to go out and get those services privately. And it's part of our bylaw. We've said you need to participate in these programs. So I do think it's time that the onus is put on those buildings to, if they want to store in a small building, like you said, for them to go forward and do that. So no, we have not entertained the thought of the city providing some sort of enclosure for them to put those containers in. No. Do you want to add anything? No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hunt. I'm going to have to pass the chair over to Councillor Wilson here, as I've got a few questions. Thank you. So just on the point where you were discussing a 3% increase in waste diversion. What has led to this?
Sorry, through the chair, a 3% increase in waste diversion. Were you talking about increase in blue box material in the garbage stream? Oh, okay. Just want to be clear on that. I couldn't speak to that. I mean, when we do waste composition studies, there's always going to be a little bit of fluctuation. So what we have to understand is we're talking about, you know, a subsampled area, right? So if we're talking about 1%, 2%, those are relatively small changes, I would say, in the waste stream. For instance, the waste diversion rate here at the City of Hamilton goes up, I would say 1% to 2% each year, and we would say that that's relatively consistent. So I would say that it's hard to pinpoint why that would be, but again, I would say that that is not outside, it's not alarming to me that it's up 3%. If it was up 10%, I'd have a big issue with that. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Through you, Chair, to my next point, have we audited singles? And sorry if I've missed that. Have we done the same audit on single-family homes and townhomes throughout the city? And if we haven't, when would that be coming?
Yeah, so through the chair, we just began our single-family waste composition study last week. So we are doing a 4-season waste composition study on single-family homes. This is the first season. It'll go through until the spring, the summer, because this would be our fall sample period, so that we will get a better understanding of, you know, how this looks and how the two compare. We did also just complete a set-out study for single-family homes that finished last week. So that'll give us an idea of how many single-family homes are actually putting out green bins, which is a big question for us. And in that particular study, the set-out study, we did at minimum 150 homes in each ward, between 150 and 200. So we tried to get every part of the city. We really wanted to get a good idea of, you know, how the two compare. So we will have similar information coming up, updated. The most recent single-family study was in 2022. So we want to update all this information.
Oh, very good. Look forward to that, because obviously with the changes to the blue bin program that's been taken over by Circular Materials, I'd be interested to see if there's any increase in recycled materials being put into waste. And I can tell you from my perspective as a councillor, my calls to my office requesting trash tags has increased dramatically. Now, I don't know if staff are seeing that exact same scenario play out, but for my office, I'm getting far more requests for trash tags now. So I do wonder if, because it's more difficult for people to obtain blue bins, as in the past, you would come down to a municipal service center, you go to City Hall, call your councillor, what have you. It was fairly easy to get a blue bin. Now, going to Circular Materials, they've made it more difficult. You know, I've found that people, they don't want to purchase a blue bin. And if Circular Materials is not willing to provide that blue bin to them, I'm noticing they're just throwing their trash, or they're throwing their recyclables right into the trash. And that's a trend that I'm noticing. So I'll be curious to see if that 3% is not 10%, and the alarm bells will be going off. And further to this, you know, the two trends that I'm sort of seeing right now is just the difficulty in blue bins are harder to get for residents. And then the green bins that we supply as a municipality. Now, I don't know if this is maybe a crazy comment or not, but I'm noticing the raccoons, the complaints that I get, they are finding their way into our green bins easy now. I don't know if we've changed our green bins. And so what I'm noticing with folks, they'll take their organics and they'll just put them in the trash because their garbage can might have a better locking mechanism on it. So I'm just curious if you've got any comment on any of these trends that I'm seeing, and if staff are seeing those same things and what they anticipate. Through you, Chair.
Yeah, so through the chair, we'll be looking to see from the waste composition study what the actual trend is from what we see. The waste set-out study, we are able to count whether or not homes are putting out blue boxes. We aren't able to audit the material, but we are able, obviously, to see how many blue boxes out there. So we will be able to get a sense of what that participation rate is. At minimum, what they're putting out at the curb. So we should have a good idea of what that is. I would be very interested to see, because we're later after the transition, it'll also be interesting to see now, which during the transition and our 3 other audit periods will be after January 1st, which will be when we have one collection program throughout the entire province. So it'll be interesting to see that. I did mention earlier in the meeting that list of materials has increased of what's going to be acceptable in the blue box. So that'll also be interesting to see, because as of January 1st, residents will be communicated by Circular Materials, as well as through some of our materials on behalf of Circular Materials, these new materials. One of them, which I found interesting, was, say, toothpaste tubes. That has been added to the list. What does that mean? So does that material actually increase in our blue box stream because they're adding materials? But again, to your point, if they don't have blue boxes or can't get blue boxes, where are they going to put it, right? So again, we're hoping, as I discussed previously, that we can make it a little bit more accessible for residents to get those blue boxes. We've asked before, and we're trying to work towards that so the residents can get it, because I think everyone here agrees that saying you have to go to Stony Creek to get the blue box is a little bit, I will use the term from the counselor as ridiculous. Sure, I will say that. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, that answers my question perfectly. Thank you. And just my final comment is, I'm also curious to see where this is going to lead to with the audit, because ultimately at the end of the day, although they've taken on the blue box program from us, which has been a cost benefit to taxpayers, there's also, if they're messing with the program, making it more difficult to accept, disperse blue bins and accept certain materials. And if people just give up on the blue box program altogether, which is a trend that I'm seeing, it's not a tsunami, but it is a trend that I'm seeing, what cost is that going to be to the municipality if we're accepting more waste as a result of the program evolving in this unfortunate manner? So that's my last comment.
Thank you. And just through the chair, I'll just add to that when I started the presentation today, it was about amendments to the blue box regulation. I think we can see that the province is trying to, from lobbying from producers, is getting away from how effective the program could be in the future. And I think that's an important note. And municipalities have said this to the province, and they've ignored all the comments that we've provided. And when you said that, yeah, they've taken away some of the costs, but they've thrown some of that cost back on us. So blue box collection, for example, for businesses is now something that the city has to pay for, which essentially they should be paying for some of that. We may have to pay for blue box servicing of these multi-residential buildings that producers no longer are responsible for. So yes, the bulk of the cost is gone, but it also seems like they're trying to throw some of that back at us as well, which is not the intent of the regulation.
Perfect. That's well summed up. And with that, I will take the chair back. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just want to circle back to Councillor Wilson's questions earlier about pet waste and different types of recycling opportunities for it. So we'll see later on in the presentations, but we are doing an organic strategy for future organics within Hamilton. And depending on the technology or the processing technology, there is an opportunity to have pet waste put through the organics process. It just depends on what that technology looks like. So that is something that we are looking at through our strategy, and whether or not that'd be an option in the future, depending on where that lands, but just so you know.
Great. Appreciate that. Not seeing any further speakers for this, so we move on to 7.3, Solid Waste Management Master Plan. I'd like to call upon Glenn Watt, Senior Project Manager, Long-Term Waste Planning, to begin the presentation, please. Just give me a minute here.
Good morning. Pleased to give you an update on the progress of the development of the new Solid Waste Management Master Plan. So to start off, just a brief project overview. The current Hamilton Solid Waste Management Master Plan expires at the end of this year. The current plan was approved in 2001 and is updated in 2012 and 2020. and it's a long-term strategy for managing the city's waste. The new solid waste management master plan is meant to build off the previous plans and align with the city's current priorities and climate action goals. The master plan will guide the waste management strategies for the next 25 years. And, next 25 years. And it's meant to reduce waste generation, reduce environmental impacts, establish new metrics, support reuse, and overall improve the waste management system's performance. So you can see from this slide, there's a three-phase approach. Phase one focused on understanding the current state of the system, including waste composition, infrastructure condition, alignment with regulatory requirements, identify any data gaps, and produce a baseline report to inform future planning. Phase two involved forecasting future needs for the facilities and reviewing technologies, aligning options with regulations and policies, and evaluating those options. It also included executing a engagement plan and preparing the draft recommendations for the final report. So phase three includes a finalization and involves developing a final report that includes a 5-year action plan to address immediate priorities, and this will be presented to Public Works Committee for approval. So just an update on the actual project status. The phase 1 and 2 processes are complete, which included the public engagement, like I said, and includes a survey analysis. The project remains on track, no delays to report. We're currently developing the final report, which is under internal review. The presentation to council is scheduled for Q1 2026 with key recommendations and survey results to be shared. Following that is the implementation and planning that will begin on the improved strategies. Engagement, just a bit about the engagement process. It was a key part of phase 1 and 2. It included open houses, staff engagement, subcommittee engagement sessions, council engagement, and an online community survey through Engage Hamilton. There was really good feedback collected from these sessions, and it is directly shaping the recommendations. Both open houses were held at the community space at the Hamilton Farmers Market along York Boulevard, and that's the 2 pictures there. Public House number 1 was held on May 3rd, and it was attended by 50 residents. The online survey was held on July 18th to August 8th and completed by 986 participants. And then we not long ago had Public House number 2 held on September 20th with 56 participants. So that's the update. I'll open up the floor for questions.
Great. Thanks, Glenn, for the presentation here. Any questions? Great. Seeing none. Thank you for that.
You have it.
We'll move on to 7.4, Organics Management Strategy. I'd like to call upon Ryan Kent, Manager of Waste Policy and Planning, to begin the presentation.
Thank you. This will be a brief update on the organics management strategy, just to give everyone an idea of how the project is progressing. So just to let everyone know, we have completed several important tasks. Staff have received the first draft of the report, siting review, so where potential new facilities might be able to be handled here in the city of Hamilton. That review has been completed. There's been an initial technology and market analysis completed. So the market analysis looked at renewable natural gas that might come from the process of anaerobic digestion, as well as digestate, which would be a byproduct of the process. Upcoming tasks, we do have an interdivisional meeting with staff to evaluate options. So Hamilton Water, transportation, different groups to deal with, just make sure that we get the input from all the staff that we need for the different options, as well as a financial analysis, which is obviously an extremely important part of this project that the consultant is heading up and will be doing that. So the project is on schedule. We expect the report from the consultant to be done by the end of this year to allow us to provide a report back to Public Works Committee in Q1 of 2026. And I think staff are very, very interested to know what they're going to have for us and for anaerobic digestion and whatever other options that we could have from the green bin program, as well as leaf and yard waste. That's also a part of this analysis as well. So that was a very brief project update. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks Ryan for the presentation there. Any questions? Councillor Wilson, please.
Given the two meetings going on, these conversations are coming together. If, for example, one of the goals of this is seen from the renewable natural gas generation, there's an existing business planning piece of that. You just maybe talk about if I think the assumption, my assumption is these two pieces are on each other's now. Is there an intention to have them start talking to each other, or do we need to get further along on this first?
So it's my understanding that no, as of right now, they have not been talking to each other. To answer that first question, it's my understanding that from a waste perspective that group deals more with the landfill gas, but I don't know if you have anything else but I don't. Right.
Potentially, I guess, is this being considered as a third source is really maybe the question, and it's premature is I think the answer I'm hearing.
Yes, I would say yes, especially considering we don't know what path we're going to be taking or what path makes the most sense from the city's perspective, right? So I think the one main goal is that we want to try and get towards is having some sort of a process that we can capture the gas that can be generated from the processing of organics for the city's use in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, just through the chair. Right now, like you mentioned, is a preliminary review to determine what type of technologies are available for us and how can we move forward and what is the best way to move forward from a costing perspective and a net value. But definitely as we go through and have this report and understand what the options are, the conversations with the subcommittee and those a part of that board will have to take place to see how it fits in as a whole.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Tannison, please.
So just following that up, you stated there's an interdivisional meeting with staff. So what's that mean, interdivisional, if they're not going to talk with Hamilton Renewable Power just yet?
So the groups that we will be talking with will be Hamilton Water to see if there's any synergies between the managing of waste like wastewater versus the organic stream. So there may be or there may not be. The other meeting was with what could we do with that gas once we have it? So what other groups could benefit from it? We have not had discussions with Hamilton Renewable Power. They're not a division. They're not internal. So I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. So that would be external to the city as opposed to internal to the city. So.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad we got that on the table. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Tannison. Any further speakers to this? Seeing none, so we'll move on to 7.5, promotion and education update. Ryan Kent, Manager of Waste Policy and Planning, can please begin this presentation.
Thank you very much. So moving along to this, there are three updates for promotion education. The first one is our student move-in campaign. So as some people around the table probably heard, this is becoming more of an annual thing for us here at the City of Hamilton for our waste outreach staff and our waste bylaw staff. When students come in to to, let's say, Mohawk, but mainly McMaster. A lot of them are living off campus. We want to make sure that they have the right information that they need to be good neighbors, I guess, to the neighbors. So usually late summer, as in this year in August, well, we provided waste packages to these student homes that we are known to be student homes. There's also a location or an area around McMaster where we mail packages. And these packages are waste guides, trash tags, and a postcard that you can see that provides a little bit more information. So we know the houses, that's direct mailing. There are other areas that we just do around so that we capture them. Staff have been on campus, outreach staff have been on campus with booths, talking to the students, making sure that they, if they have any questions about waste, to answer all those and providing posters that are hung up. I would say that we've had a lot of great cooperation through McMaster and Mohawk to also use their social media channels to really get the message out to the students. And we've also had some waste bylaw staff that have been proactive in the neighborhood to see if there are any issues, to deal with them right away before they get called in. Second update is for the waste facility open house. So this is also successful so far. Our most successful event so far with 172 attendees, 15 children. So we did do something a little bit different this time. In the past, all these events, you've had to go to our website, sign up for a date, or sign up for a time rather, and that's when you were supposed to come. We didn't do that this time. It's just show up whenever you wanted. It worked really well. Staff were really happy with it. And we got more attendees than we normally have. We also included in this particular event a textile donation event, so residents could come down, and there were some boxes for them to provide their donations to. That piece wasn't as successful as we would have hoped, a lot less than what we had when we did one of those at one of our community recycling centers earlier this year, but we'll, part of this is seeing what works and what doesn't work. So really happy with the turnout. The weather also probably had a big, was a very big contributing factor to that because it was a beautiful day as well. And the last piece, this is continuing the trend about, as I spoke about, multi-res and a proactive approach to education and outreach to our residents. This particular piece is also about green bin participation, about single-family homes, as we were speaking about. So staff are going to start this month. October 20th is the first week that we're going to have our staff go out there, see who's setting out green bins, who isn't setting out green bins, and for those residents or households that aren't putting out green bins, leave behind a door knocker. You can see the front of the door knocker on the slide there. A waste guide, a guide on benefits of using the green bin program, but also a small package of compostable liners. So as we all know, to participate in the green bin program here in the city of Hamilton, we require compostable liners as opposed to plastic bags. So we will provide them with a small sample pack of that. I believe there's 5 in each of them. The education campaign, starting by the end of the year, will also include green bin displays at events. So we really want to be pushing the green bin, paid advertisements, social media, really to get the word out, to get people to participate more in the program, the benefits of participating in the program so that we can divert more material from landfill. That is the last slide on education, so I will stop sharing there. And happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you for that. Seeing Member Hunt, please.
Okay, I've seen this topic come up a few times today, is textiles. So have we thought of encouraging like a textile bin, say at our waste sites or somewhere in the city? Now, I know there's a lot of businesses that have textile bins, but has the city ever thought of taking that on? And then would you distribute it to like one of the charities, or would it be worthwhile since we're seeing that much in like apartment buildings? And
so through the chair, to answer your first question, about whether or not the city is thinking about a program if we take it from that perspective, we are pilots, so this is our first piloting on special events. So this facility open house, we are piloting at 2 city facilities that will be starting later this year. So one is a recreation facility, and one I think we're still trying to figure out the best location. So I do have someone on staff who is piloting this, trying to see what works best. Does it work great to have it at some of our facilities? We do have at our Mountain Community Recycling Center, we do have a reuse store there that people can drop off close to, but we want to make it a little bit more accessible. So we're piloting and looking into that. To answer your second question, it sounded like you thought that, or you were thinking about the city having its own bins and then distributing that to charities. I think we would look at it more from a partnership perspective. Different groups have that infrastructure in place already to do it, as opposed to the city being kind of a middleman for that. I think our role is really, where can we put their bins? There's some really great municipal textile programs with partnerships with different municipalities. So I think that's where we would want to, we see ourselves where we would be in that situation. But yeah, definitely we're looking into it more. So I would say stay tuned probably early next year to see some results on those pilots.
Okay, and this one comment, so like I'll call it the reuse store at the Upper Ottawa branch. So a few times I've actually tried to bring stuff and they've said, well, we're full, we don't want it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so personally, I just don't use them anymore. I use other places. So I'm thinking like if textiles is really good, you have like a textile bin where people just pull up, drop, and poof, and away they go. So.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's one of the things that we've been looking at to pilot at one of our community recycling centers and other facilities. Like it would just be a bin as opposed to having the same type of model of a reuse store. We aren't thinking about piloting that model in any of our facilities because we simply don't have the room, first of all. So
no, just a simple drop-off bin.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at for piloting. Yeah, absolutely.
So I suggest Upper Ottawa might be a good one to try. Okay.
Great. Thanks so much. Councillor Taddison, please.
Just on the promotion and education piece, and I may be mistaken, but it looks like we're reaching out to the tenants, say in the areas where it's student populations and so forth. Have we looked at possibly reaching out to landlords and kind of making that a condition of the landlords when they speak with the potential tenants of like, this is the expectation here? Has there been any research done on that? Or I guess the other question is, do you have the ability to access research on ownership of homes in those areas?
So through the chair, I don't believe that our waste staff have access to databases that allow us to look up the owners of the specific buildings. If we happen to have it on file, we could, based on us having communication with them. But I don't believe we have the ability to actually do that based on privacy.
Okay, understood. I just know that, going through my own kids, trying to find housing, it's very competitive. And, if the landlords could put a little bit of, incentive into potential renters with criteria of saying, hey, this is the expectation, I think you might get more buy-in from the tenants. And I'm not saying that you're not getting buy-in. I'm just saying, like, if that's an expectation up front, then, that's a good discussion for landlords and tenants to be having.
Through the chair, I would say that since the program started, since we've done this communication to the groups, the off-campus students, that the neighborhood, there's been great positive feedback from the neighborhood associations about the progress and what those neighborhoods look like now. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. We could certainly look at that in the future, I think, but I think the approach right now has been very positive, and we've seen some great progress. So not to discount that approach of speaking to the property owners themselves, but I think that if we really want to improve it any more, maybe we could look at that. But I think that we've done a really good job recently. Yeah.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thanks, Councillor Taddison. We've got Member Govender online.
Hello. So I have something with respect to the textiles. I think having accessible points to drop off textile waste is a great addition and definitely something to focus on, but it can also feed into the whole notion of fast fashion. And when people feel like they do have that option to make sure that textiles get recycled, it can just encourage that overconsumption of cheap, readily available fashion and adding more materials to the waste stream. So I guess my question is, has the city considered also either hosting or supporting clothing swaps so that people are not only encouraged to drop off clothing, but encouraged to get new to them textiles that already exist in the stream rather than continuing to buy the cheap fast fashion items that are so available now?
Yeah, so through the chair, we've definitely looked at these reuse options, specifically through the process of the solid waste management master plan. As that being a program that maybe we could introduce to the city of Hamilton and maybe on a wider scale. So it is definitely something that staff are looking at, and it is one of the options that is being evaluated at this time. So I 100% agree with the fast fashion mention that you had there about how we want to get away from that. And we certainly staff are going to evaluate that as part of the master plan process.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Nielsen, please.
So you talked about the move in for the students. What about the move out? Something I forgot to mention when I was doing the survey for the swamp was the swap-a-rama. Any plans to bring that back?
Through the chair, sorry, what was the last?
Swap-a-rama?
Swap around?
Swap-a-rama.
Swap-a-rama?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so you put the stuff out of the curb. That is another program that's being evaluated as part of the master plan. But back to your question about move in and move out, I should have mentioned that we do move in and move out as proactive programs. So that program the move out program starts in, I believe, late March. So we do proactively, it's the same list, we reach out to the same groups, and we have the same approach. So we absolutely do that because we know move out, things end up at the curb that don't need to be at the curb. So we are absolutely, that's part of the program. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Seeing no further speakers to this one, we will move on to 7.6, pet waste pilot. I would call upon Joel McCormick, Acting Director of Waste Management, to begin the presentation, please.
Great, awesome. Through the chair. So we wanted to bring forward some information and preliminary results when it comes to a pet waste pilot program that we've implemented within the downtown core. So we were directed through the downtown subcommittee almost a year ago. We're coming up November when we first installed these, to start a pilot program to encourage responsible pet waste cleanup and disposal. So the objective of the pilot is basically to reduce pet waste being left on the sidewalks and providing accessible waste receptacles, and in this situation here, complimentary waste bags for pet owners. As I mentioned earlier, it was a request and directed through the downtown subcommittee. 1 year, we decided that we go for a 1-year pilot so that we can understand all seasons with a pet waste pilot program. And it commenced in November 2024, so we're coming up to a year soon enough. And we have 4 pet waste containers that were installed in problematic locations within the downtown, being Gore Park, basically corner of Main and John, near King William Street, and also the park's name is escaping me right now, but just right outside the International Village archways. So our findings to date at this point, we're finding that it's not necessarily making a difference at this point. We find that the actual containers are mainly full of litter, just regular litter, and used as litter containers instead of specifically for pet waste, which is not surprising in a way. What we would have liked to see is just more of a qualitative experience when it comes to seeing less pet waste on the sidewalks, which we're not necessarily seeing that either from our staff and also the business improvement areas in the downtown that we are working with and having conversations with as well. We're also finding that the complimentary waste bags are depleted quickly, is what we will say. We believe it's a subject to misuse, and we're finding that in all locations. So staff can't necessarily stay on top of replenishing them on a regular basis because they leave quickly, or lack of a better word. So what we're finding at this point is not necessarily any real positivity coming from this pilot, but come November, we will pull our qualitative and quantitative data that we'll have and review and help determine what our next steps are moving forward.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. Member Hunt, please.
Through the chair. So the question is, so you've done your pilot downtown. We already own the containers. Are we thinking of maybe redeploying them to some parks and see if the uptake's different?
So there has been, and I believe there are some parks within the city that have similar programs. They were put in place, I would say, a few years ago, but with the partnership with a recycling company, which I can't remember the recycling company's name at this point. Oh, Sutera, yes. So we had that pilot project with parks, and what we found is the intent of it was to take the waste and to recycle the waste. And what was happening is it didn't necessarily work out as planned either. And it was mainly because of the not necessarily the easiest working relationship with the company to collect and to recycle. So that had to be put on hold. So there's no real recycling aspect of that there. So moving these, what worked well and how we were able to manage a pilot in the downtown is because we have staff in the downtown each and every day. So under the downtown cleanliness program, we have operators and laborers who manage litter in the downtown. And so having the ability to be at those containers each and every day, multiple times a day if needed, that is how we were able to manage a pilot in the downtown. If we sent them elsewhere, it wouldn't be as easy because we don't have those resources.
One final point. So did the bins that were in the park with the third party, did they find a lot of garbage in their bins, or were they used better?
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure how contaminated it was.
Okay. I was just thinking of the future if we ever get a stream for pet waste. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Great, thank you. Councillor Taddison, please.
Just what happens, I know this is a pilot project, but what do we do at our leash-free dog parks?
Good question through the chair. I believe they're part of the original pilot that we were just speaking of had a couple locations with those bins. But I believe at a leash-free dog park, the rule is to clean up after your pet. But other than that, I don't have any real answers for you, but we can take that back.
Okay, so just a suggestion that, you know, for if there's going to be a future pilot project, something like that, or, you know, there's significant parks in my wards where everyone congregates to walk their dog. Those would be ideal locations for this as opposed to a downtown, and you wouldn't have some of the other factors, I don't think, with like missing bags and so forth in certain neighborhoods that you might get in other neighborhoods. And I'm not making any disparaging remarks. I'm just saying that that could be the reality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Taddison. Seeing no further speakers to this, we'll move on to 7.7, diesel versus compressed natural gas collection vehicles. I'd like to call upon Joel McCormick, Acting Director of Waste Management, begin this presentation.
Okay, through the chair. So we touched on this earlier this year, but have brought back a little bit more information and details when it comes to the transition of our diesel-fueled waste collection packers as we're transitioning them to compressed natural gas. So at this point, that picture there is a new CNG packer that we have recently taken ownership of. So we have 8 at this point. And of our entire fleet of 37 waste collection packers, Council has approved 21 of those to be converted to CNG fueled packers. And as mentioned, we currently have 8 that are in use, and we are procuring the others at this point, just working with our friends in procurement for tenders and stuff like that. Part of this process as well, so the picture that you will see there, that is our waste collections yard at 1579 Burlington Street. And a part of the taking compressed natural gas packers is we needed a fuel solution. So we have a temporary fuel solution at the yard. You'll see those 2 trailers just closest to us in the pictures there. One of them is equipment like pumps and stuff like that, and the other is actually holding compressed natural gas. So the trailer is replaced on a regular basis to ensure that we maintain fuel, and our trucks are plugged in to a slow feed and are charged up overnight with CNG so that they're ready in the morning. So at this point, we are using this process until we have the new bus, HSR bus maintenance building up and running, because there will be a fast fueling station for CNG at that location where Waste Management has invested some funding for a second fast fill so that we have access to it and we're able to fill on a daily basis as we need to. When that happens, we won't need the temporary fueling system that we have at the yard, and that will be removed. So from a cost perspective, wanted to break down the cost associated with the compressed natural gas, and from a capital perspective and from an operating perspective. So when looking at a premium, so when purchasing a CNG packer, when compared to a diesel packer, there's a premium cost associated with that. It ranges depending on the time of procurement. I think when we looked at it last, it was $60,000 per vehicle. I believe it's about $70,000 per vehicle at this point. So it is a one-time fee. You'll see in the top there, over to the right, of $1.56 million to convert the 21 packers that we have converted to CNG fuel. There is also the cost for the temporary fueling station at the yard. And you will see also, as I mentioned earlier, the $500,000 that Waste Management invested into the HSR new maintenance building, where we will be using for future fueling of our packers. From an operating perspective, we do see some fueling savings. So from a maintenance perspective, there's not much difference from a CNG to a diesel. It's all kind of the same for the most part. We don't see a tremendous difference when it comes to a maintenance program and the cost for maintenance. It does come down to the environmental perspective, and it comes down to the costs associated with it. We saw a cost increase when it comes to just our contribution to fleet reserves. Because of the value of the CNG vehicles is more than a diesel, we had to increase the contributions to fleet reserve. But on the flip side, we do see some fuel savings. And you will see there that from a net perspective on an annual basis, we have a increase of a $35,000 budget when taking into consideration the increase from a fleet, if it increased to the fleet reserve and the fuel savings. And from the perspective of the environmental benefits, so it might be costing a bit more on an annual basis for the CNGs packers to be operating, but we do see the environmental benefits. With the 21 Packers being swapped out to CNG, we do see or will see an 18% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over the lifespan. An important note as well is the up to 95% less nitrogen oxides when compared to diesel, and CNGs don't emit particulate matter of ppm or parts per million 10, which is a cause of air pollution. Here to answer any questions if need be.
Great. Thanks for that presentation. Any questions? Member Hunt, please.
Okay, with the truck technology, has there been any advances in hybrid systems? So you still have your compressed natural gas engine, but running like a generator and then running everything else basically electrically? Because you could get more efficiencies of the unit. If you had like an electric drive, less brakes, that'd be less PMT, 10 material. Any news on that technology?
Yes, well, in general, so we are looking at what it looks like moving forward. So the next natural step from a cost perspective and a cost benefit analysis was to go from diesel to CNG. That was the best bang for the dollar, more of the low hanging fruit. We have in the past and continue to look at electric options. And as we move forward with replacement of the fleet that we received in 2022, we will look and see what type of technology is available from an electrified perspective. Right now, it's quite expensive and cost prohibitive at this point. The amount of dollars it takes to buy an electric packer is several $100,000 more than a CNG packer. And on top of that, I believe each unit needs approximately $70,000 to $80,000 from a charging infrastructure. So, but as that progresses, and we do see pilots in the works and down in the States are definitely locations that have electric, we will continue to look at that with our fleet friends as we.
Yeah, I was kind of saying where I saw a fleet down in the States where they keep the engine, they just put a generator on it instead of they're not fully electric. Right. They don't have the battery banks, but they just use their engine and they convert the rest of the truck to technologies that would be more efficient. Right. Yeah, anything on that?
It would be something that we'll look into as we come up to our next options for replacements.
Yeah, so it's a full hybrid, but just using the smart parts of the hybrid. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Member Hunt. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thanks. Just on that last slide with the numbers, was that, it says 1197 GHG reduction. Is that ton CO2 equivalent? Is that the use?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then is that for one vehicle or the 8 that are currently acquired?
That is for a combination of all 21 when they're in service.
Okay, so in all 21 over their lifespan, and their lifespan, is that 30 years or 25, 27? 7, okay.
Yeah, lifespan of our fleet for waste collection packers is 7 years.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, last one is, and what's our current supplier of CNG? I'm assuming it's just whatever Enbridge is supplying or what, like whatever the utility company is supplying. And do we have, does this change if we look at like a biogas source or an RCNG source, whether internal, external, or yeah?
Trying to go off what their name is escaping me, the company that we have the contract with to supply the gas, and I believe it's just from an Enbridge perspective. A part of the organics strategy is we're looking at the RNG perspective and the renewable natural gas and how we can include that into our fleet across the board as byproducts of the organic process.
But so these metrics and these numbers are based with an assumption of kind of using fossil natural gas as opposed to biogas, or like it's the exact same formula, but just where it came from is it came from the ground.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Moving on to Member Hargreave, please.
Perfect, thanks. Joel, just a quick question. In your cost analysis, does there any cost involved with changing over the maintenance side? Because I'm assuming your maintenance facilities would need changes to accommodate the CNG side?
Through the chair, no. So most of our maintenance for our waste collection packers is done through a third-party contract who were already have the ability to service CNG vehicles.
Good. Okay, moving on to Councillor Taddison, please.
Any insight on the mountain? We don't have city trucks picking up the garbage. So what are the contractors using? What types of vehicles?
They use CNG.
CNG, okay,
Yep,
thanks.
they've been operating CNG for the past 2 contracts with us.
Okay, and then just one final question for my own, barbecue knowledge, in terms of CNG versus propane. Are these trucks able to use propane?
To the chair, no.
Okay.
No, not the same conversion side.
Okay, thanks. Just wondering in terms of a pinch, if they needed to get fuel and they were away, would it require a tow? Could it go to a closer station? Thanks.
We'd have to get a tow, or we could get a bus to come and they can hook up and give us some of their fuel as well. We looked at that as a.
Oh, thanks. I like that. That's good.
risk
That's good knowledge.
Great. Seeing no further questions to this one, we will move on to 7.8, completion of cells C, D, and E at Glanbrook Landfill. And I'd like to call upon Joel McCormick, Acting Director of Waste Management, to begin this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, through the chair. So we just wanted to give a quick update regarding the completion of cells C, D, and E at the Glanbrook landfill. And so for the public consumption, what that means is constructing a portion of the landfill that could be used for a new area for landfilling of waste. So construction commenced in 2022, early 2022 on the cells. We did run into a little bit of an issue as we were going through the process with the contractor, which ended up in a termination of that contract in and itself. We then went out, procured a second contractor who ended up completing the work and any remedial works required, which we then have reached substantial completion in August of 2025.
Great.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Any questions about this one? Member Hunt, please.
I have a comment. So a person approached me, they knew I was on the committee and they complained about all the smell and everything from the garbage dump. And I said, well, is it the Glanbrook? And they were from Binbrook. Turned out it was the one at the top of Stony Creek Hill, the private one. And I said to him, you live just downwind of, I know where they live, just downwind of our actual facility. And they didn't even know it existed. So that was actually, it's a good thing that you guys should know. So they were probably within, I said, watch and see the trucks. They were one road over. So actually that's a good sign for you.
I appreciate that. I know they work very hard from our city staff and our contractor to ensure that it's operated as well as we can.
Great. Thanks for your comments, Member Hunt. Councillor Taddison, please.
And I'd like to say that 25 years ago, they may have known they were living next to a landfill site, but significant investments in terms of the methane capture and the generators. So good on our landfill site. I'll reserve my questions for off because it's not to this. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Taddison. Seeing no further speakers to this one, we will move on to our final presentation, 7.9, 2020 Solid Waste Management Master Plan Update Action Items. Ryan Kent, Manager of Waste Policy and Planning, will begin this presentation.
Thank you. This is an update on all of these action items. We go through this every subcommittee meeting, so I'll go through these relatively quickly just to give everyone an update. So the first groups that we will, group of action items we'll talk about are ones that actually came from the update that staff weren't working on previously. So the ones in the green are ones that came directly out of that were council directed. So as you can see, we've completed quite a few of these projects that are on here. Policies and intermunicipal partnerships, supporting community reuse and reuse programs, increased curbside enforcement, updating our audit methodology, development options for our material recycling facility, waste performance metrics. So we've done all those, as well as existing program improvements, which is our business recognition, special events and school education. And we've done an analysis on our trash tag program. And then we're still working on a couple of pieces. I would say, preparation for our next waste collection contract. Obviously that it says 2028 here, it'll probably be 2029 now, but work will continue on that after the 2025 deadline because the contract is a little ways away. These items in the gray boxes are ones that staff were either had completed or were in the process of completing when the action item list came out. Only one here as a single-use plastic strategy that hasn't been completed. We're almost done, and it will be done by the end of this this year to meet the deadline. Blue box transition is probably the most notable one. We've gone through our transition that happened on April 1st. We're dealing with a few other items, but the program has been transitioned over to producers. We've done the agreements that we've had to do, reports that we've had to do, and that piece is done. There are a few pieces here on the processing side that we are still working on. Although number 8, construction of cells C and D, we just had that update, so we can check that one off. And that is it for those. So happy to take any questions on the action items from the update.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions on this update? Councillor Tattison, please.
Sorry, just one last, go at the blue box transition and access to blue box. Like someone from Sinclairville, I've had calls from people very close to Carlisle saying it's really not fair that they have to drive down to Stony Creek to get a blue box. I thought initially they were promised that they could make a phone call and then it would be delivered out to them. Can you give us any updates on what's the aspirations of the city and what are we doing to try and improve this accessibility to blue boxes for people other than going to Canadian Tire and buying one?
Yeah, so on my slide near the beginning of the meeting where I was talking about making them more accessible, I would think, well, what we have spoken about as staff is maybe bringing them back to CRCs to make them a little bit more of or community recycling centers. But that again includes, we're gonna have to speak with the current contractor of the Blue Box program. It's a little bit difficult, so they need to keep them in stock. And how do we make sure that we keep them in stock? How do we keep record of them? There's a lot of administrative pieces there. So we're trying to work through those pieces. We do think that would be the easiest solution if the city was going to provide any assistance to providing blue boxes and making them more accessible. But it sounds simple, but when you're dealing with a contractor and they're providing these blue boxes and who should get them and who shouldn't get them, because the regulation really only states that they should be replacing broken blue boxes as opposed to providing a free blue box. The way that we did things here in Hamilton previous was you call up, you get a service request number, you can get a blue box for free. It doesn't need to be replacing a damaged one. So that is a big gap, right? So that service may still be there. We still need to work through those pieces and how do you administer that piece. So again, we'll continue to see how we can deal with this. I would also say that the rules that have been communicated to us about getting replacement blue boxes have changed a couple of times. Like you said, hey, come to my door or come to my curb, I'll put out my blue box and you're going to replace it for free versus no, you have to come to Stony Creek to get it. So we're still navigating it. It is, as we mentioned before, about costs going to the producers. This is another one that maybe not an actual cost, but maybe cost and staff time is something else that the municipality is going to help out with because of the program is not the way people would envision it being to be the most successful for residents here in Hamilton. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer than that, Councillor, but that's what we have right now.
Okay, so I have a suggestion then. Has the city reached out to our local MPPs? Because this is obviously a provincial issue that's kind of been tossed at the city. So what kind of, discussions are going on with the provincial government over this matter? Because I think it's going to be probably in many municipalities.
Yeah, so through the chair, I would say the best voice to getting issues in front of the provincial government would be industry organizations. So the two probably working the best on this file would be the Regional Public Works Commissioners of Ontario. They've got a waste subcommittee, and they've authored several letters to the province on this topic, not just getting blue boxes, but on the blue box amendments that we've spoken about, depots, all the issues surrounding the blue box transition, in partnership with the Municipal Waste Association. So as you can imagine, a united voice is probably better than separate voices. That's not to say that individual municipalities don't provide letters on this, but definitely this was one of the issues that was brought up previously, just like the blue box amendments. However, our voices don't seem to be heard very well at the provincial level. They're not as loud as the lobbyists for producers, I would say.
Big city mayors. But just a question, can I get a copy of any of the, like, do you have access to those letters or so forth, or could you put me in contact with those? Because I do delegate at Roma every year, and this would be a perfect topic to bring up.
I would be, through the chair, I would be happy to provide you with the letters that have been sent on this file.
And thanks, and maybe we'll have you join us at Roma for a presentation.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I will see if that fits into my schedule.
Thank you, Councillor Chaddison. Is there any further speakers to this? Member Hunt, please.
This is going back to the landfill. You were mentioning that you had an underperforming contractor and you fixed the deficiencies. What was the big deficiency that occurred?
So through the chair, I don't necessarily want to get into details about it in a way. I'm just not 100% sure what has been discussed in camera and not in camera.
Okay, but we're confident that everything's corrected now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Hunt. I've got a question, so I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Wilson, please. So just picking up where Councillor Chaddison left off on the blue bin situation, and apologies if this was covered, and I know it was at a previous date, but where are we headed with the, I know the blue bins, the province right now is just continuing sort of what the municipality was doing, maybe adding some additional items, but are they headed in a different direction with collecting? Like I know right now, like it's good to have this conversation about replacing blue bins, but are we at a point where the producers might be getting away from our circular materials? They might be getting away from how we traditionally have done this, splitting up the blue bins with the rigid plastics and the cardboards?
So through the chair, several municipalities have been given notice by Circular Materials of moving, for example, from a blue box manual collection to carts. So that is certainly something that fits into that. So how the material is being collected. I haven't heard as of yet going from a dual stream to a single stream. I haven't heard that of yet. It may have happened. A lot of the conversation that I've heard is municipalities moving from manual collection to a cart-based collection, and that has been forced by several municipalities. So definitely, we're probably going to move forward to that. You know, I would say that there's problems when you have a dual stream system going to a cart-based program. But I think there may be one municipality that has been told that they're going to move to that, but I can't tell you which one. It escapes my mind. I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's what I have on that.
Right. So yeah, I guess just, you know, it is an evolving situation that we're having to deal with as a municipality. So it's, you know, as much as I would love to intervene and increase, you know, find a way to increase blue boxes for our residents, it is kind of difficult right now because it does seem like, you know, this conversation's evolving. Other municipalities are getting put into a different category of how this is handled. So I guess it's more of a wait and see approach for now. And I guess I'll wait for the audit to come up and maybe that'll give us a little more clarity on where this is headed.
Yeah, and through the chair, I would just say that municipalities are really serving as the voice of residents for this program. It's just a shame that those voices aren't being, I would say, given the same level of importance as they should, or the level of importance that they should. The producers have the ability to change the program and do what they want with it. Add materials, collect in a cart, don't collect in a cart. I think that there are some municipalities also that have been told that they're going to bi-weekly collection from recycling as well. So it's really it's really their responsibility to make it as efficient as they think. So, but it is unfortunate that we're not being given the same amount of maybe the words respect for speaking to these types of issues.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I completely agree. And with that, I'll take, perfect. Okay. Member Hargrave, please go ahead.
Thanks. I was just going to add, so the tendency, I think, is across the provinces, the move from dual stream to single stream cart-based service. So Windsor has moved that way, and their adjacent municipalities have moved that way with circular materials coming in line. I think there's a number of eastern municipalities. There's a bit of a question, I think, as to what the processing infrastructure that's in place currently, and whether there's more availability of single stream or dual stream facilities. But I would expect that likely over time we'll move completely to a single stream processing system, partially because I think there's been so many issues with collection, labor issues related to collection. So the cart-based system tends to sort of fit better on that side. And there does appear to be a significant amount of investment that's happening on the single stream processing side. So it's likely that Hamilton will move that way at some point.
Great. Thanks for your comments. Seeing no further speakers to this, we will I'll ask for a mover and seconder to receive all the information items 7.1 to 7.9. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Member Nielsen. All in favor? And that carries. Are there any notices of motion? Okay, thank you for that. No notices of motion. Are there any general items for general information or other business that anyone would like to raise? Seeing none, there being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned at 11:52 a.m. Thank you.